Thank you so much for being here. I am Gina Duvernay, the Adult Services Manager for Gwinnett County Public Library. Before we get started, I want to let you know, in case you didn't see our delectable snacks, feel free to nibble on them because we had all of you in mind when we purchased them, especially you. We have Brave and Kind books over on this side of the room. Hey, thank you for being here. So you're welcome to purchase the books, and they have cute merch. I'm eyeing one myself. So I like, is that a sweatshirt or a t-shirt? Okay. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and read the bios of our moderator for the evening and our author for the evening, and we'll go ahead and get started. Chika Unigwe, okay, I've been practicing, was born in Nigeria and was educated in both there and in Belgium and earned her PhD from Leiden University, Holland. Widely translated, she has won many awards for her writing. Her books include On Black Sister Street, Better Never Than Late. You know that's Better Never Than Late. You did that on purpose, okay. And The Middle Daughter, which I love because I'm the middle daughter, they're the best, among others. She teaches at Georgia College in Milledgeville. And we have our author of the evening, Denene Millner, is a 6-time New York Times bestselling author, Emmy Award-nominated television show host, and award-winning journalist who has written 31 books, among them Taraji P. Henson's Around the Way Girl and the picture book Early Sunday Morning. Millner is also the editorial director of Denene Millner Books, an award-winning imprint that has published numerous award-winning books. McDowell Fellow, Millner has written essays for the New York Times, Glamour, and NPR, which hosted her critically acclaimed podcast, Speak Easy with Denene. Millner is a graduate of Hofstra University and lives in Atlanta with her 2 daughters and their golden doodle, Franklin. Please give her a round of applause, both of them. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, and thank you all for being here. And it's such a pleasure meeting you. I'm fangirling right now. I really, really loved One Blood. Like, I loved it so much I read it twice. In between grading and teaching.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah. The poem at the beginning, right, provides really helpful framing for the novel, for what it says about blood, right? And I'm trying not to give too much away. Do you want to talk about the origin of the poem, since this is also a book about origins?
Absolutely, absolutely. So first, before I start, I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's a rainy day, it's a Friday, you could have been anywhere else and y'all chose to be here, and I am deeply grateful. I'm also super grateful because when I moved from up north to Georgia, this is where I moved. I lived here for 8 years before I moved to Atlanta, so this is home for me in Georgia. I'm a New Yorker, so, But Snellville is my home here in Georgia, so thank you so much for coming, and I'm super excited about this new space. This library is amazing. Y'all are so lucky. The library, when I was here, was lovely, but this is otherworldly. So enjoy that, and congratulations to Gwinnett Public Library for this. The poem in the beginning of the book was written by my daughter, Mari, and she wrote it when she was 12 years old. And what was special about that poem and why I never forgot it and why I saved it was because a few days before I found out about that poem or heard it, I had been listening to a popular radio show host on a radio show. We were on our way to a soccer game somewhere around here, and he answered some questions, a reader question, and the reader question had something to do with whether or not this man wanted to adopt his girlfriend's son. And the radio show host said something to the effect of this an adopted child being a throwaway. And it just hit me right in my heart and my gut because I'm adopted. And the idea that there would be people out there thinking of me and anyone else who whose family chose them as throwaways just really made me feel a way. And there's not a lot of times that I thought about my adoption, but that was one time. There's only been 2 times before I started writing this book that I really thought about adoption. One was with a family member who said something really disrespectful, and the other was this radio show host. So fast forward a couple of days after that, we went to my daughter's, it was like curriculum night at her school, and they said, oh, well, you know, we had a school-wide poetry competition, your daughter won. And I'm like, she didn't tell me. So then we sit down and she reads it. And it's this beautiful poem about blood and how even when you don't share direct DNA with someone, that we are all connected by this thing that runs through each one of our bodies. And it's, you know, like our blood is but a teaspoon. What's in your body, as she wrote in the poem, is but a teaspoon, but it's in this big, beautiful body of being that that we all belong to. And it just soothed me in a way when I thought about I'd always thought about adoption in that kind of way, but it just sort of recentered me and brought me back around to understanding that it didn't matter what that idiot said on the radio or how anybody thought about being a throwaway. My parents chose me, and we are all connected because we're all human. And so I just felt like it was the perfect opening to One Blood. Yeah. And she allowed me to use it.
Yeah, because it's also a book about connections, right? It's about blood, it's about connections. The Nigerian writer Chris Abani once said that the art is never about what you write about. The art is about how you write about what you write about. Lots of abouts there. And reading One Blood reminded me of that quote because it's so beautifully and powerfully written. It has such quiet but explosive power, right? The prose is miraculous, you know.
Oh, wow.
And
thank you.
And as a writer, I'm curious how long it took you to write and how many drafts it took to whip it into this incredible shape.
Oh, wow. So the book itself took about a year to write. The very first pages I wrote on my 50th birthday. I was in the Caribbean, in Tobago, and with a few of my girlfriends. And we were sitting out on the deck of the pool that overlooked the Caribbean Sea. It was in this cliff. And there might have been some bourbon involved and some other things. It was 9 a.m. I'm saying it was 9 a.m. We didn't wake up like with bourbon, but but it was there because there was this big flood, this crazy flood while we were there, and we couldn't go on the first flight from Trinidad to Tobago, and so we had to go overnight the next night, and so we didn't sleep all night, and then we just decided it was so pretty, and we had missed a whole day in Tobago and in this beautiful house, so we were just going to stay up, and so we were up, and bourbon just happened to still be there, right? And I had a notebook and a pen, and just felt moved to write the first words to what ultimately ended up being the first words to the book. The blood never much bothered Grace. And I was thinking about that in that moment because it was my 50th birthday, and people tend to think that women's lives are over when they hit 50, right? That if we no longer can have children, and you know, at the time I was divorced, newly divorced, that our lives are over, that, you know, no one will look at us, no one will appreciate us, and that we should all just sort of, you know, dissolve into nothingness or whatever that is. And I just never subscribed to that.
Bluetooth disconnected.
That's right. That's right. The Bluetooth to all of that thought was disconnected. Right, that's right. And I just wanted to write about sort of like this transition of this little girl into womanhood, because I felt like for the first time in my life, sitting there on that cliff, that I was transitioning into womanhood. And I don't know how, like I was good and grown, but it felt like I was transitioning into something new, something bigger and better than I'd ever experienced before. And so from there, it took about a year. And then I handed it in to my editor with great trepidation and fear. And she had a few things that she wanted me to work on. There were a couple of plot points that changed toward the end. And that took another, like maybe 3 months. So probably all together about a year and 3 months.
Incredible. It's a really beautiful book. And if you haven't read it yet, you should definitely do. Buy multiple copies, as I shall be doing. Give out to friends and family. And it's interesting that you say that you wrote the first, you started writing it as you were transitioning into womanhood. Because this is a novel about women, right? About ordinary women, right? Lolo.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep calling her Lola.
Okay.
Lolo, Grace, and Ray, right? Who were so Lolo is the grandmother, Grace is the daughter, and Ray is the
So
I'm mixing
Grace
it up.
is the adopted, Grace is the birth mother.
Grace is the birth mother. Lolo is the real mother.
Right, the adopted mother.
The adopted, yes. But I love that in the novel that Ray makes that distinction. Like, that Lolo is the real mother.
Absolutely.
And Grace is the birth mother.
Absolutely.
So it's about these three women, ordinary women. It's an intimate novel, right? And the dramas that take place do so mostly in domestic spaces, right? So in the kitchens and living rooms. But these dramas have really powerful repercussions, right? But these are, ordinary women, right? Why was it so important for you to profile women like these?
I wanted very much to honor my mother, who, Betty Millner, I'm gonna call her name, Betty Dolores Millner. And so her middle name is Dolores, so she is Lolo. And my mother lived an ordinary, extraordinary life. She had friends who she loved. She was a jogger for Jesus in the church all the time. She was on the usher board. She was a deaconess. All of her friends were deaconesses. They got together and talked about the Bible. My mother was the one who made the macaroni and cheese, and, Sarah made the chitlins and the greens, and, actually it was Miss Rags who made the chitlins, like in the book. And Miss Tina made this incredible lemon cake. And I would sit there and I would watch them and want to be like them, right? They were all from the South. They all migrated up north. They all met in the same community, in the same church. And our families were all connected. The kids were all friends. The men, the husbands were all friends. We bowled together on Saturdays. And I just felt like I didn't get to see that life. I didn't get to see my mother and her friends in the newspapers that I wrote for, in the magazines that I edited, on the television shows that I watched. I'm still from the generation where it was still a big deal to see Black people on television. So, like when the Cosby Show was on, like we all sat around the television and watched, but it wasn't necessarily my family that I was watching, but I still felt like this pull to wishing that I could see my mother and my father in that kind of way. And so One Blood is in honor of Betty Dolores Millner, whose life deserved to be in the spotlight, whose life deserved to have an airing, whose life deserved to be discussed, and we deserve to, and she deserves to be understood. She passed away when I had my second baby. So my first one was 3, and my second one was 6 weeks old when my mother passed away. And in the time that I had my first baby to the time that I had my second, our relationship changed. And it changed because she no longer saw me as her daughter. And from that generation, to be seen and not heard, right? And so you don't ask a lot of questions because she's not going to answer none of them. And why you asking anyway? That's who she was. And it wasn't until I had my daughters that relationship started to change and loosen up. And she started talking a little bit, or more importantly, she started trusting me a little bit more. And so when that happened, our relationship began to change. And just when we started getting into the groove of things, she passed away. And so there were just questions that I didn't get to ask her that I asked the characters in this book. And I hope that I did her some honor in trying to shine a light on this life, this extraordinary life that she led.
Yeah. I was thinking of the, so I know that we say that these women are ordinary women, right? Living extraordinary lives. But yet, through these women, you explore aspects of African American history. So there's the Great Migration. I felt like I was taking a history lesson. That's the Great Migration, the 1963 Birmingham church bombing that killed 4 black girls. There's the history of black women and peoples. But it doesn't wear its research on its sleeve, right? I'm curious to know how much research you did, what you learned, and what surprised you the most.
Oh my goodness. So the research was obscene. And mostly the research was just my way of, of stalling the writing. I'd be like, I'm gonna have them land in Willingboro, New Jersey, which is a town that I spent a few years in. And it was like, let me do 5,000 different, Google searches on Willingboro, and then read a book about it. And then, read about segregation, and then integration, and then, the building of suburban, landscapes and houses. And it was my way of stalling, because sometimes the words wouldn't come. But I felt like in order to tell the stories of Grace, Ray, and Lolo, that we need to understand time and place, because the way that they are acting, the ways that they are living, the choices that they have to make are rooted in the time period that they're in. So if you think about like Dolores was, like her whole trajectory and why she ends up with her husband and with Tommy, and why she, makes the decision to try to, lock a guy down, was because she was in a moment in time when women weren't even allowed to have credit cards without the permission of men. She couldn't live in her own apartment without the permission of a man. And so in order to have the very basics of life, she would have to depend on a man and that currency that she could give a man in order to get what she needed to survive. And so Lolo's whole story is about survival. And I needed to understand that time and place so that I could really be authentic in telling why she makes some of the choices that she makes and the impact that it has, not just on her and Tommy, but her children, and how Ray, in her time, Ray's story takes place in the 90s. And so, like, what's the pattern happening in the 90s with, you know, this idea that women can have it all, and you know, you can balance work with a husband and friendship and community. And my really dear friend Akila once wrote for a blog that I had called My Brown Baby that balance is for flamingos. And I need you to know that I was thinking about that while I was writing Ray's story, because Ray is the one who says that, you know, in her actions, that I am not the leader of a three-wing circus, and nothing will get done well if I'm trying to balance like a flamingo. And so, and that required just sort of, again, time and place. And so a lot of research went into it. And I, you know, like I kind of say that it was me stalling, and there were definitely times when it was me stalling. But, you know, I needed to do that in order to be authentic to the characters.
Yeah, thank you. So Tommy and Lolo's relationship I found really fascinating, because it seems to me like there's tension between love and duty. You know, so Tommy is very well aware of what his position is as a man, and he's very aware of what Lolo's position is as a woman, but he loves her, right? Where do you think the space is, or the place is for love in a relationship that is very aware of this sort of gender roles?
Ooh, that's a hell of a question. When I think about my mom and my dad, I think about Tommy and Lolo. And they very much loved one another. But they had their issues, just like everybody else who's ever tried to to blend a life with another person. It requires sacrifice. It requires understanding. It requires you to be able to get over anger. It requires you to put some of yourself aside. And the only way that you can do that outside of the duty is to have love, right? I truly believe that once love is no longer a part of the equation, then all of the rest of it falls to pieces. And so, you know, in order to sort of make it through the drudgery of waking up in the morning, getting the kids, you know, together, you know, putting them in their clothes, getting their lunch together, putting them on the bus or driving them to school, going to work, getting back, cooking dinner, helping the kids with their homework, putting them in the bathtub, reading them a story, doing hair, putting a nightcap on, putting them in the bed, spraying for, you know, monsters under the bed, going to sleep, trying to get some rest, trying to be a porn star for your husband, then going to sleep, and then waking up in the middle of the night with a finger on your face like I peed in the bed, getting up, and, you know, all of that requires dedication and love. Because outside of love, that is the kind of thing that happens day in and day out that could drive a person mad.
And yet, so Lolo really does love Tommy, but she's aware that she's doing a lot, right? And she's aware that this almost obliterates her. And yet, this is the image of motherhood and wifehood and womanhood that she very intentionally passes on to Ray, right? And Ray, to a certain extent, accepts that as well, right? And And it's not because she doesn't love Ray, right? There is something that the Egyptian writer and activist, Mona El-Tahawi, I can't remember the exact phrase, but she refers to the way that women help support patriarchy. She refers to those sort of women as foot soldiers of patriarchy. And I kept thinking of that as I was, reading your novel.
Yeah.
How do we break that chain then?
Honey, if you ever find the answer to that and bottle it up or put it on a page so that we can all follow the directions, ma'am. I don't know that society can exist without it. Because no matter what we do different, it always comes back to us doing something wrong. And so you can either stand resolute and, well, then I'm just wrong then, but this is the way that I'm going to do it. Or if you really want to be in love and to be held and to, find that thing that happens between you and a significant other, there are just some things that you're going to have to accept. I'm divorced. And I no longer accept that. And so, finding someone is a whole nother proposition, right? I think that this generation, like my daughters, that they're shaking it up a bit, right?
Sky's generation.
Absolutely. Sky's generation. So Sky is Ray's daughter.
And Ray is raising her.
And Ray is raising her,
intentionally
right.
In a different
Do
way.
the opposite of what her grandmother did. And I feel like, my daughters that, and I think about my nephews and how, and we sit and we talk and they're just different. They don't think like the dudes did when I was their age. And that's a product of them being raised, in a different kind of way. By women who are just like, this is no longer acceptable. But for every Miles and Cole and Mari and Lila, there are 1,000 who are just going along to get along and thinking that things will not change. And so this is what they have to subscribe to.
And so Ray and Lolo have a very interesting relationship, right? For Lolo, maternal love sort of is uncertain. It starts off uncertain, then it comes all at once, right? I'd like you to read the passage where their relationship is somewhat, starting to change.
Okay. This is a piece where their relationship is starting to change because something happens in Ray's marriage, and she flees over to her mom's for some mommy love and therapy, and doesn't necessarily get what she went there to look for, because Lolo is still very much who Lolo is, right? And that's not necessarily going to change. She's changing, but it's not necessarily the bones are going to be unbroken there. And so she is just finding out that she's just reconciling with her mother, that her mother is one of two mothers that she has. She has a birth mother as well. Okay, so would be helpful if I could see what I'm about to read. Okay, oh, much better, okay. Ray rubbed her tears with the back of her wrists and pushed herself up from the chair. The second Lolo crossed the threshold into the kitchen, she stopped short as if she'd run into an invisible barrier and closed her eyes, inhaled so deeply she almost coughed from taking in so much air. You smell it? Ray asked. It's been a while since he came, but he's here again, for you and the baby, maybe for me. You used Daddy's aftershave? Lolo asked, completely misunderstanding what precisely was happening. No, Mommy, Ray said gently. That's Daddy's scent. Ray looked into her mother's eyes, her pupils piercing, her pupils saying exactly what Lolo needed to understand. He comes to you like this? Sometimes it's his scent I smell, the aftershave, Ray said. Sometimes he comes to me in dreams. Once I woke up on a Sunday morning and smelled calf liver, plain as day. I jumped out the bed and raced into the kitchen, and it was quiet and empty, everything in place, but it smelled like he was standing right there over the stove, cooking liver with that gravy I like, and rice, his favorite. I didn't tell you, Ray added, because I thought you would think it was something evil. You know I don't believe in that hoodoo stuff. It's not in the Bible, and God's word tells us not to worship false idols. Mommy, I don't have any control over this. I see things in my dreams all the time, have since I was little. I just never told you. I thought maybe I was evil or sinning against God because that's what you raised us to believe, but you smell him too. How can Daddy's presence be evil? Let me finish, Ray, Lolo said, raising her hand to shush her daughter. I have something I need to show you. I'll be right back, she said. Lolo disappeared back down the hall and reappeared just as quickly with a small white pouch in her palm. She ran her thumbs over it slowly and stood there, her feet stuck to the linoleum Tommy had laid with his own hands when Ray was just a kid, dancing around on the other side of the kitchen threshold, regaling her father with a recap of her favorite book, The Little Princess. This is yours, Lolo said simply. She pressed it into Ray's hands. Ray looked quizzically at the pouch, then pulled it open. Her fingers touched the lock of hair first. She pulled out the bundle, and her body tingled, like some electrical current gently shocking her system awake. She laid it on the table, and then the rabbit's foot next to it, and then the pipe. She gasped when she pulled out the handkerchief and saw the blood-stained material between her fingertips. That she dropped on the table, this time involuntarily, her hands shaking as she cocked her head to one side and then the other, washing over it with her watery eyes. There's one more thing in there, Lolo said quietly. Ray hesitantly reached back into the pouch and pulled out the folded brown paper bag square. She slowly unfolded the paper and read its contents. What is this? She asked, finally looking up. Lolo searched for the words that fear of what Tommy would think of this thing, of what God would think of this thing, had kept her from uttering over the past 33 years. Standing there, her daughter's heart wide open, Lolo found the courage to pour in. Your daddy didn't want me to show this to you, but Lolo paused. Mommy, what is this? Ray asked again, her heart racing as she rubbed the paper between her fingers and stared at the letters. This baby, this baby, this baby, a sweet, protected, prosperous life. That was in the bag they found you in at the orphanage, Lolo's words, which she'd swallowed whole almost 3.5 decades earlier, gushed from her throat. I think your birth mother left it for you. See what this is, she said, pointing to the circle of words on the paper? It's a wish, like a prayer, but the way they used to write them down in the old days back in the South when they believed in haints and roots and such. It's a petition. A what? A petition, a prayer for you, Ray, I think from your mother asking for your protection, Lolo said. I think she wanted this to be with you. I think that's what she hoped for you, protection. Your daddy, he was your protector. He was my protector, Lolo said. She rubbed Ray's shoulders as she talked. That's all I required of him, and he did that. He protected us. He found you in that basement, and he is the one who made sure you were okay, even when it was me who was hurting you. He didn't want me to give this to you, because as far as he was concerned, we are your family, and you were born the day we brought you home. We are your parents. Nothing else before that mattered to him, but this paper, this petition, he did what it asked of him. His presence here, right now, tells me he still is. Ray, overwhelmed by the idea that her birth mother wished the best for her, that she was holding her hair and blood in her hand, that her dead father was taking up space in the room in which she and her mother stood, just down the hall from where her baby was laying her head, took off running. Out the kitchen, down the hall, to the bathroom, the scent following her as she moved. Ray slammed the door and slid down onto the bath mat, still wet with the water she'd just bathed her daughter in not an hour earlier. Over the years, Ray had used her imagination to fill in her birth story with color and light and grace. Maybe my birth mother was young and scared and couldn't fathom raising a baby on her own, was the first of her thoughts. Sometimes the story had villains. Maybe she was forced to leave me on that stoop by a family that refused to support her and her child, or maybe she was in an abusive relationship and feared her baby would get swooped into the violence. The stories, they would be as varied as the books she tucked on the top shelf in her childhood closet. Always, though, Ray's birth mom was the hero. After all, there were so many ways that life as a little defenseless baby could have ended badly for her. But this woman, she earned her place on the pedestal Ray had tucked away in her heart and forever stood there, still, immovable, innocent, like the tiny ceramic angels Lolo kept on her glass etagere. Now, her mother's blood between her fingertips, her own baby just down the hallway, Ray regarded this woman as so much more than an inanimate object or some made-up fairy tale gathering dust on a shelf. Ray understood her humanity. Her decision, as far as Ray was concerned, was beautiful, selfless, steeped in pain, heartbreak, and yes, love. A love that she could now understand because she too was a mother who had carried her own baby in her womb and couldn't fathom the strength and courage and resolve it must have taken for her birth mother to leave her child, her blood, the very beat of her heart, on a stoop for someone else, Lolo and Tommy, who loved her deeply, to have. To Ray, it was the ultimate sacrifice, a miracle no different from the miracle of conception, what it took for sperm to meet egg and egg to attach to womb and for womb to maintain the absolute perfect conditions for new life and for new life to find its way to loving arms. The pouch was proof to Ray that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Ray held the paper to her heart and inhaled her father's scent. Daddy, I miss you. I love you. I love you. I love you and I miss you and I love you, she said. And then for her mother, the one whose blood ran through her veins, she wailed.
Thank you so much. It's like really beautiful, really powerful. Ray sort of going through the choices that she imagines that her birth mother had. Also reminds me that I think it's at the beginning of chapter 10.
Right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No one.
It's so beautiful. No one sings lullabies for 16. Can you read that line?
Sure.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. And I'll tell you the story behind what happened when I wrote it.
Sorry? Okay.
No one sings lullabies for 16-year-old color gals with babies in their bellies. There are no melodies with promises hung on stars, no moonlight kisses, and a word about the dawn.
Yes, thank you. Because this is about, choices and Black motherhood. Who gets to be a mother? The power. Who gets to keep the autonomy? Who chooses for them? Just reading the entire book and reading about not lynching of figuratively and literally of Black women and Black girls, I wondered how difficult it was for you to emotionally to write. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, both of those passages, the one that I just read and the very beginning of chapter 10, are deeply emotional. And it's because when I wrote chapter 10, it was the night after I figured out that I was born in a home for unwed mothers, and that the story of my birth was actually different from the story that my father had told me. And I found out that I was born in this hospital or this home for unwed mothers, and that 85% of the women who gave birth in those homes had their babies forcibly taken away. And so that was the first time that I really kind of had some kind of information about possibly what may have happened to separate me from my birth mother. The other passage that I read came after I actually found my birth mother. The research. Because once I realized that the hospital that was on my abbreviated birth certificate was actually a home for unwed mothers, I came across information saying that if you were from New York passed a law in like 2017, saying that if you knew your birthday and the hospital that you were born in, that you had the right to your full birth certificate, which would have all of the information about your birth parents, right? Or whatever they chose to share. And so I wrote away for it. I filled out all the paperwork online, uploaded $28 and some money for FedEx. And 2 weeks later, I had my full birth certificate with my mother's name and her birthday and her home of origin, which I'm a journalist by trade. It took me exactly a week, maybe 2, to find her. And she was right here in Snellville.
Wow. Wow.
She was right here in Snellville. The whole time that I was here, she was here. And so I could have seen her at the Chick-fil-A down on Scenic Highway, or, at the AME church over in, Lithonia, or, at the grocery store at Kroger. They still got that mural up there where everybody is somebody. I could have been standing right up under there with her and not known it. Well, I would have known it because we look exactly alike. I actually found her picture. She has a son. I don't know if he is a blood brother, because I can't assume that he's not adopted, and I have not reached out to him. But I found his Instagram page, and on his Instagram page toward the end, there's a picture of her after she passed away. She passed away in 2017, and is presumably buried somewhere here. Yeah. So extremely emotional. And I have no doubts that I believe deeply that the ancestors commune with us all the time. And that the two of them, my birth mother and my mother, were around me and helping me to find the information that I needed to find, and to find the strength that I needed, and some of the words, because there would be times when I would be writing for hours and not pull away from the computer, and then when I did, I'd look at what I wrote and be like, I don't even know where that came from, and I just truly believe that the two of them were just, angels around me, just guiding my hand, and I felt them, and I feel them when I read, my own work. There are times when I get emotional because I know that they had a hand in it. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been told that this is the very last question. And it's a really beautiful book. You deal with a lot of, heavy themes, but, there are moments of levity. And ultimately, it's a hopeful book, right? Because it ends in love, right? And in Igbo, I'm Nigerian, and my local language is Igbo. To love in Igbo is to ifunanya, to see with one's eye, right? And this is a book about women wanting to be seen. And at the moment that they feel seen, or at the moment that they are seen, then the change happens. And you do that really beautifully. So thank you very much. And thank you all. I don't know if you've got time for audience questions. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. This is lovely. Thank you so, so much. Thank you.
There was somebody else trying to come in, so I had to let them in. But thank you so much, and we'll do another round of applause and run up here. I really appreciate you. Thank you both for coming. We have a giveaway. We would like
That's
you
right,
to
the
pick
giveaway.
who the winner is. Somebody
Magic hands, magic hands, magic hands.
Have they got time for questions from the
Yes,
audience?
we will.
Okay.
Okay. You know, I'm like Latasha Stewart. So right, it has your name, and I was like, why does it say Chica?
We'll get you your prize, but we'll open it up now for questions. If you have any, you just go for it. How about you? Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So I'm in history, libraries, archives, that kind of thing. And when I was listening to you talk, it definitely just made me think about how Black people and Black women especially are recorded in history, or lack thereof.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm working on like a little mini essay thing, and I've just been thinking about that a lot. And so, all the research that you have to go through, all the archives and newspapers, I'm sure you have to dig through just for a second. My question is just when it comes to Black women being remembered in all their complexity and in all of their existence, what do you hope for that? Like your book, do you want it to be something that people look back in history and be like, yeah, she wrote that book, and then I finally felt like people were thinking about me, like that kind of thing.
Now, Denene, can I ask you,
Yes.
for the people in the back,
Yes.
to reiterate her question?
Okay.
Like, sort of like repeat it, and
Okay.
then you give us a little,
Okay.
a little closer. So that we,
This is my doll baby. And that's a beautiful question. Thank you. She asked, she is studying women in history, or the lack of representation of Black women's lives in history books. And she's writing an essay about it and thinking about it and wondering if when we get later on down the line, do I hope that people will look back at One Blood as an example of showing the interior lives of Black women. And yes, absolutely, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the representation I did of what I think my mother, the answers that I think my mother would have given me had I asked her some of the questions that I asked of Lolo, and the questions that I asked of Grace, who represents my birth mother, and even the questions that I asked of Ray, who basically is me, right, in my 30s, and things that I wish that I would ask my 30-year-old self, like, girl, what was you thinking? And then, and then, wanting to tell 30-year-old Ray that, it gets better, and that things won't be like this always, and that you do have the power to change it. I'm hoping that people who read this book can understand that this is about everyday women and our struggles and the things that we go through and our trying to find our place outside of this box that society, patriarchy, colorism, classism, racism, all of the isms, sort of crowd us into this box, and that we have the power to get out of it. So yes, I'm hoping that that's what comes of this. Thank you.
if anyone have any other questions, just popcorn and just, there you go.
When I heard Beverly Jenkins talking about her writings and her characters, do you feel like that at some point the characters were writing or giving you the words? Because I know you said your mother and your birth mother, but at some point do you feel like the characters themselves were guiding you?
Oh, absolutely. It's just asking if my characters guided me. Absolutely. There were things that, I had written down that I was expecting, my characters to go left, and they're like, oh no, girl, we going right. And then we're gonna fly over that mountain that you didn't know was there. And then we're gonna do circles and then swim through the ocean and maybe think about that cute little thing that you thought you were gonna do. Absolutely, and that happens all the time, but that comes from asking them questions and allowing them to answer them instead of trying to come up with the answers for them. And so when you surrender to listening to their answers, that's when the best writing comes to me, right? Would you agree?
Hi. I love the book.
Thank you.
And I listened to it on Audible because I saw your post that Tina Lifford was
Yes.
So I was like, I need to go ahead and listen to it. Yes.
Yes.
So I listened to it, and I was really into it. The book ended, and I was like, wait. I need to know I need to know what happens next. And I think you finished like around the same time I did. And I was like, did I miss?
I know.
I need to update. So I'm just wondering, did you ever consider an epilogue, or did you ever consider her finding her mom, or whatever happened? Like, what? Because I was like, we're not going to find out.
I know. Everybody's always like, really? What? You just let Grace go like that for real? Yes, I did. Because I wanted y'all to feel what it feels like for an adopted person to not know anything about their origin story. What happened to Grace? I have no idea. I got lucky and found my birth mother, but that was only because I stumbled across it. And I'm gonna take back, I stumbled across it. I think that she wanted me to find it, right? And I think that she was there and she was present 1 o'clock in the morning when I was just scrolling through, stalling and doing research, and found my way to, just by happenstance, something that I had been researching my entire life, the name of this hospital on my birth certificate, Booth Memorial Hospital, which is now Queens Hospital. You know Birth Memorial?
Everything you're saying is like, you were born in Booth Memorial Hospital? I lived right there. And then Hofstra, I grew up right by Hofstra. Then now I left New York and I've been in Snellville.
And here we are in Snellville. There might be some synergy here. They don't happen by happenstance. And I'm a firm believer of that. And my coming across, literally, I just came across a bunch of message boards of people who were born in Booth Memorial Hospitals all throughout America. And I thought mine was just, a regular hospital that just went through a name change. And come to find out, there were people who were like, I was born in Booth Memorial Hospital in Compton in 1963. I'm looking for my mother. Or I had a baby in Booth Memorial Hospital in New Orleans in 1972. I'm looking for you. And that's when I realized I was born. Then I started researching, what is Booth Memorial Hospital? This all happened at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then found out that it was this home for unwed mothers and the baby scoop era, and how, the government conspired with social workers to take babies away from single mothers and give them to families, stable families, so they wouldn't be that kind of thing. And so I just happened to find my mother, but I wanted the readers, and I get a lot of that, I don't even understand why the Book of Grace ended. It's just disjointed, and why we not seeing her? What happened to Hattie? Did she get hit by a bus? Because that's what she needed, to be hit by a bus. But no, y'all want retribution, right? But no, I needed the reader to understand that is how adoption works. And I wanted, just for a moment, for you to understand what it feels like to not know the basic information about your origin story. A majority of the people in this room know where they were born, what time they were born, what the circumstances were behind it, who your mama is, who your daddy is, whether you get along with them or not. You have your basic information. Until I got my birth certificate, I didn't even know if my birthday was my real birthday, right? Because I had been told that I had been left on a stoop somewhere, and at an orphanage, and my parents came looking for a daughter 4 days later, and I was there, and they took me home. That was the beginning and end of my origin story, and then come to find out that wasn't true, right? And so that's why. I did, and did not know that. And then Black Cake. Did y'all know that Black Cake is about this too? I was like, well, damn, I thought I was all original. I'm sorry. My bad, y'all. There's synergy. We were all swimming in the same pool. Yeah. Yes.
We have time for one more question, ma'am.
Okay. So we don't just read books, we fall in love with books. We fell in love, madly in love. And so, question.
Yes.
Any thoughts on this becoming a movie? Really good.
Who's gonna play Ray?
I have a whole list of, because I firmly believe in seeing the characters talk to me, they appear to me. Absolutely, I see it more like a short series, like a Queen Sugar kind of thing, or like a Black Cake kind of thing, a limited series. It is being shopped right now. It's just a matter of if somebody decides that's what they want to do. But again, and I'm not gonna, maybe I won't put this negative energy out into the air, into the universe. But we live at a time where people think there's only room for one story. And just like I said, there are two other stories that are, sort of dancing on the same dance floor as One Blood. And, one that is actually on television now. And it's beautiful. If you guys have not watched Black Cake or read the book, please do. Game recognizes Game. She wrote the hell out of that story. It's beautiful. Please support that sister and her story. It's set in the Caribbean and dances around some of the same themes of motherhood and adoption. And it's different, but I watched the last episode and I was like,
Just covering her ears.
right, I was like, so, sometimes people act as if only one story is worth the telling. And so, I just saw that and I was just like, all right, I'm going to try not to be negative about this, but it's kind of hard. Yeah.
Okay, who are the actors that you're envisioning?
Oh, okay.
So let's start with Ray. Begin with Ray.
So for Ray, I envision Nicole Bahari. Because she's just freaking amazing, and I think that she would be a great sort of 1990s reporter, journalist, producer type. And with that fire and strength that she has, Roman would be, what's the brother from This Is Us? From This Is Us.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Y'all know what I'm talking
I
about.
don't know his name, but yeah.
Randall.
Randall. I don't know his name, but yeah.
What's his name? Sterling.
Yes.
Sterling Brown, who I just saw in American Fiction 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. Go see that movie, American Fiction. It comes out December 15th, something like that.
Because
yes.
he'd make a good Roman.
Yes, he would make a great Roman.
Yeah.
Lolo, I saw, Mama, I saw played by either Tina Lifford or Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw Coleman Domingo as the neighbor. Mm-hmm. I see Grace. What's the sister who played in Swarm and in the Huey Newton movie? She's
tall and skinny. She's tall
no,
and slim.
she's not. No,
because
she's
Lolo's
actually
got to be tall and
Lolo has to be tall and skinny,
yeah.
right? But Grace, I'm sorry, is the little girl that played in Swarm. Y'all look up Swarm, and she was also in that Huey P. Newton story. And I think that she's amazing. And then I still haven't settled on who would play Lolo, but I think Hattie would be played by, what's the sister that was in Sophie? Oh, she has an African last name. She's kind of
Sophie
light
Okonodo.
skinned. Yes, her. I think that she could play a mean girl.
Yeah.
And we just haven't seen her play
Yeah,
mean girl,
no,
but I think that she could play
yeah,
a mean girl
yeah.
for sure.
And then Tommy, who played Tommy?
You got your cast.
You gotta have someone special for Tony.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Absolutely.
I know. I don't know. I haven't settled on Tommy yet. Tommy is super special, right? right. Like my man Tommy. That's what he says all the time. He's like, my man Tommy.
Well, another round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have books there for you, and Denene will be gracious enough to sign some for you if you come. The line will come this way.